Dear friends, we would like to briefly discuss on an important theme like the prospects of difficult times. We are all living witnesses to the reality of difficulties in our lives. Every one member of any society at one time or the other experiences one difficulty or the other, one deprivation or the other, because none of our societies have all that will be required for a fullness of life of its members. And so whether we like it or not, we experience difficulties in one form or the other. And persons are expected to put up with these difficulties and go about their normal daily lives. How is that then possible, that in the midst of darkness, one will be expected to work and produce enduring results? How is it then possible that in such difficult moments that one will be able to keep his or her cool? How is it possible that in the absence of poverty, in the presence of poverty and excruciating poverty, that one will be able to put up the best of faces and become most friendly? How is that then expected that one who has an empty stomach will be able to be gentle in all his or her ways? How are we expected then to react and to live in moments of grave difficulties? How are we expected to live and move in the face of obvious denial of rights and privileges? How are we then expected to preserve the peace of the community and the peace of society in the face of such obvious carnage going on in and around us in our society, where people are killed unwarrantedly, needlessly, where despite the gifts, the abundant gifts of nature, that people live in abject poverty? How are we expected to go on, manage our lives in the face of obvious difficulties? It is important, the other side, to know that difficult times have their other sides. Difficult times are indeed trying times. They could also be times of grace, times of renewal, times of more discovery, and times of renewed energy and enterprise. For us, men and women of faith, difficult times are not forever. They have their expiring dates. Difficult times are part and parcel of the life in society. And the ability of the members of society to fashion ways and means of coping with the oddities of life in society, the better the society develops and grows. It is also good to know that despite the efforts in science and technology, despite human intellectual developments and achievements over the centuries, we have not been able to do away completely and totally with difficult times, difficult situations, and embarrassing situations. But it is also thanks to human ingenuity to have evolved means and ways of coping with such difficult moments. For example, it is easier, it has been said at several levels, that it is easier to put up a little light of the candle than to continue endlessly to blame darkness. Because the effort we use to blame the presence of darkness would have been channeled to produce a little flicker of light. And in that flicker of light is the flicker of hope that brings in light in abundance in a state of darkness. And therefore, difficult moments do not last forever. But resilient spirit inner courage and steadfastness in the conviction that darkness hasn't the last word are required in order to build a more stable and enduring society. We would not be able to do away completely and totally with occasions and circumstances of difficulty, despite the astronomical achievements we've made in science and technology. Today, it is good for us to know that we can live in the midst of such difficulties while doing our best to mitigate their harsh implications for a life of meaning in our society. Let moments of darkness and difficulties not stir us into resignation and into fatalism. Let us always and everywhere summon the inner courage and determination to persevere on the path of right while trying to cope with the militating factors around us, especially in the area of poverty, insecurity of life and property, sickness, and all that. We would always be required to contribute the little we're able to do given the circumstance. That is one important way of ensuring that we are not being intimidated out of existence by the sheer fact of the existence of difficulties. We must also have the conviction of the heart that our little contribution to solving the problem will be good enough. And when we do that together with one another, we will be sure that we are laying sound foundation for our society and especially for generations to come. Difficult times abound, but more important is the fact that they are not forever. There are spirit, there are energies here that ensure us and equip us to fight against difficult moments, that you'll be able to have good life in our society and then encourage good life among others. May the difficulties of the moment not become for us excuses while we are to indulge in acts of violence or other acts that are capable of tarnishing the reputation, the image of others, or even their good names, or even encouraging us to do things that we ordinarily would not have done because we know that two wrongs cannot make a right. It is also our bounden responsibility to respect the opinions of others and tolerate also their own way of life, insofar as that do not tamper with our own rights and privileges. Living in difficult times requires an ability of the mind to cope with such situations. It requires resilience of spirit. It requires collaboration with others. It requires optimism and a sense of hope that doesn't disappoint. Let us persevere in our resolve that despite the difficulties of the moment, a life of brighter prospects, of hope and joy awaits us here on earth and hereafter. And so in all our actions, in all our systems, in all our processes, let us be convinced that after the rainfall there will be sunshine. After the dark hours of the night there will be daybreak. The sun will always come up. The sun will rise. And as soon as we face the sun, the shadow gets behind us. And when the shadow gets behind us, when we can march to prosperity, we can march to abundance, we can march to life, we can march to redemption. Shalom.